Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes a whole stack of information and really boils it down to what you need to know so you can quickly get informed on, well, fascinating topics.
Exactly.
And today we're plunging into something really critical and often pretty misunderstood: why men hesitate to open up emotionally. We've gathered insights from social media, community forums, expert commentary, just trying to understand the layers here.
It's a really complex issue.
It is. Our mission is basically to unpack the common experiences, the perceptions that feed into this hesitation, and maybe explore what it means for building, deeper connections.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So we've seen this conversation just explode, really, on platforms like TikTok. There's this account at Kennedy Motivate. They posted something called a vulnerability alert.
Right.
And the message was stark, but it clearly hit a nerve, got millions of views. It said, "Ever wonder why men hesitate to open up? It's because when they do, it often gets used against them."
Yeah, and what's fascinating, maybe revealing, is just how immediately relatable that sentiment is for so many people.
Absolutely.
This isn't just like one person's observation. It's clearly a shared experience. You see it echoing deeply across loads of comments, discussions we looked at. It really highlights, a pretty significant barrier to emotional openness. Almost a crisis of trust, you could say.
A crisis of trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels right. Because the idea isn't just sharing, it's that the sharing itself becomes ammunition.
Exactly. It feels less like entering a safe space and maybe more like stepping into a zone where, emotional data can be weaponized later.
Weaponized, that really lands hard. And diving into those TikTok comments and threads on Reddit too, this theme just comes up again and again. Vulnerability being used against someone. Like one user on TikTok, Sean McDougall, he shared this absolutely heartbreaking story. Said his wife, "Threw my dead parents in my face."
Wow.
Yeah, and it led him to vow, never open up again. And he said he lost love for her right then.
Yeah.
Just awful.
That's brutal. And if we connect that kind of personal story to the bigger picture, you see many men describing this pattern, right? Where opening up consistently leads to negative consequences. It becomes almost a learned response.
Like Pavlovian, almost. Open up, get hurt.
Sort of, yeah. It's like this negative reinforcement loop. Reddit users totally echoed this. One said, every time I've opened up, which hasn't been very many, something's been thrown back in my face or used against me in a very unnecessary and shocking way.
Unnecessary and shocking. Yeah.
Another one put it really bluntly: whatever you say can and will be used against you. And also discussed in various chats with her friend groups. So it really makes you ask, if your past experience consistently leads to pain, why would you keep doing it? Why take that risk?
That's a powerful question. And it's not just about direct retaliation, like having words thrown back at you. There's another layer, isn't there? This fear of just losing something, losing traction, being seen differently.
Exactly. The fear of being perceived as weak.
Yeah, one Reddit user put it pretty starkly. When a man opens up, you get thrown in the weak category, and almost every woman loses interest. And this isn't just like a theory. Another user described his girlfriend losing interest right after he cried about his mother's breast cancer diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
He realized, he said, "My relationship ended at that moment because I wasn't supposed to cry."
That's incredibly sad, and it points to this phenomenon. People sometimes call it the ick.
The ick.
Yeah.
That sudden turn-off feeling.
Yeah, that sudden, almost visceral feeling of repulsion. It's a critical point because it highlights this profound disconnect sometimes. Matthew Hussey, the dating coach,
Sure.
he reflected on his own experience, told this story about a first date where he asked, "Can I kiss you?"
Okay. Seemed polite.
Well, the woman laughed and told him, "Never say that to a woman. Never say that. Oh, my God. Just do it if you want to. You're asking. That's so..." And she trailed off.
Oh, so asking was the turnoff.
Apparently.
Right.
It just shows the incredibly confusing messages men get, right? The expectation, often reinforced by media, maybe traditional ideas of masculinity, is often for men to, take control, not show hesitation.
Right. Be decisive.
Exactly. So asking for consent or showing emotional vulnerability, it can feel like it goes against that script.
Yeah.
It feels like weakness, even if partners say consciously that they want vulnerability. The reaction sometimes says otherwise.
That is such a confusing double bind. So women might say they want emotional availability, but then the reaction, maybe subconsciously, triggers that ick. Is it conflicting desires or just a misunderstanding of what male vulnerability actually looks like.
That's precisely the tension, isn't it? And it's not just about individual couples either. Our sources make it really clear there's this pervasive societal conditioning going on.
Right, the bigger picture.
Yeah, like one Reddit comment said, conditioning is the biggest reason generally. Guys are taught to be tough, men don't cry, be a man, etc. And men internalize this stuff too.
And it's not just pressure from women or society in general.
Yeah.
It's from other men too, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial point Matthew Hussey makes. He says men have to put up with men too.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about, the locker room at school or at college or in a place of business where we constantly felt like we needed to be tough. Otherwise, we're going to be eaten alive not by women, but by other men.
Wow, eaten alive. That's strong language.
It is, but it reflects that deep-seated fear, right, of not being seen as strong enough or capable enough. It's a huge internal and external battle.
Yeah.
So it creates this really challenging environment where, okay, women might often say they want vulnerability, but so many men, like Hussey says, have had the experience of feeling like that's not true based on a reaction they got.
That multi-directional pressure from partners, from society, from other men, it really paints a picture of why it's so hard. So given all this, the fear of words being used against them, the ick factor, this intense conditioning, it makes you wonder, where do men take these feelings? If not to their partners, then where?
Yeah, that's the crucial next question. What are the alternatives? Our sources gave some interesting, maybe sometimes concerning answers. Well, some Reddit users pointed towards male-only spaces. One comment specifically said, that's why going out with the boys exists. It's not to go cheat, but go have a conversation about life.
Right, the camaraderie aspect.
Exactly. Others were really explicit, saying things like, only person I'm going to open up to for the moment is my therapist.
So professional help or just the guys?
Or themselves. Looking at the bigger picture, many men seem to find it just, quote, easier, simpler, safer, and more natural to deal with 99.99% of my feelings on my own.
99.99%. That's almost everything.
Pretty much. They might reach out to, their closest friends, maybe a father figure, for that tiny remaining fraction, but mostly it's self-reliance.
Which sounds like a coping mechanism, maybe, more than an ideal way to build intimacy.
I think that's fair to say, especially when you consider Matthew Hussey's point about, Alcoholics Anonymous being one of the few socially acceptable spaces where men feel they can truly open up.
Wow. Yeah.
Which led him to ask, quite pointedly, where's the space for everybody else?
That really is a stark thought, isn't it? That for many, the main accepted place for deep vulnerability might be tied to crisis or addiction recovery. What does that reliance on self or very limited outlets mean long-term for relationships, for connection?
Well, it suggests a fundamental challenge, right? Because true intimacy usually relies on some level of mutual emotional sharing. But look, while the problem feels really deep-seated, it's not all bleak. Our sources did offer some glimmers of hope, some suggestions for how to actually foster a more open environment.
Okay, good. Because it can feel a bit overwhelming otherwise.
Totally. So one Reddit user, a woman, she shared a really positive experience. She said she let her boyfriend know he could talk, but then crucially, she stepped back a little till he was in a better place to not suffocate him.
Ah, gave him space.
Exactly. Didn't pressure him. And she said 2 weeks later, he was in a better place and more open to me. It really highlights the importance of space, genuine support, and maybe especially patience.
Yeah, patience. That seems key. It's about creating a genuinely safe space, not just saying, you can talk to me.
Yeah.
It needs to be proven right.
Precisely. Which brings us to the big question. How do we cultivate environments where men actually feel safe enough to be vulnerable?
Right.
Matthew Hussey had another powerful example from a Wim Hof retreat he attended.
The Iceman. Right. Intense stuff.
Very intense. He was there with a group of, quote, extraordinary high achievers, guys who ordinarily probably wouldn't show any weakness.
Okay.
But by going through this intense physical experience together, sharing that challenge, he found these men started opening up about bullying, self-doubt, deep insecurities, things they likely wouldn't share otherwise.
Wow, a shared experience unlocked something.
It seemed to. Even Wim Hof himself apparently felt he could release some personal trauma after seeing their vulnerability. It suggests that when men see other men they perceive as strong opening up, it can give them permission to do the same.
So it reframes vulnerability.
Exactly. It demonstrates that opening up isn't weakness, it is a form of strength.
Interesting.
And it also suggests how women can be allies here, not by trying to play therapist, Hussey says, but by being strong enough to hold that space.
Hold the space, meaning being present, non-judgmental, patient.
Yeah, creating that psychological safety, proving trustworthiness over time, demonstrating patience. Like that Reddit user said, telling someone and showing someone you are a safe place is not the same, and that works both ways.
Showing, not telling. That really resonates. Okay, so today we've taken a real deep dive into why men often hesitate, um, maybe struggle to open up emotionally. We've seen everything from that fear of vulnerability being weaponized to the confusing societal pressures, the ick factor, and the ways men search for or create alternative safe spaces. It's
Hmm.
definitely a complex landscape.
It really is, shaped by past hurts, learned behaviors, cultural expectations. And what's so striking, I think, is this universal human desire we all have for genuine connection,
Yeah.
running right up against these really deep-seated fears and coping mechanisms. And while it's clear men often find support, maybe internally or in very specific contexts, the bigger goal, surely, is fostering environments where real intimacy and emotional honesty can actually thrive for everyone.
Right.
Which kind of leaves a final thought, maybe a question for you listening. If real strength isn't just about stoicism, if it also lies in the courage to be authentically vulnerable,
Yeah.
what might it look like for you to challenge maybe one deeply held assumption about emotional expression in your own life? Whether that's by consciously offering more safety to someone, or maybe even taking a small, measured risk yourself.